Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome back to TT Plays. Franklin and I are up late at night, and I thought we'd talk about the different kinds of Icelander decks. Nats is coming up, and I still haven't decided what deck I'm going to play. Icelander is one of my favorite decks to play, and a lot of locals have been picking it up lately. Well, not a lot, but 2 or 3 locals have been picking it up lately. So I've been explaining the different decks to them, and I thought I'd just do a quick video on it. So if you're interested in picking up Icelander, or if you just need help on how to sideboard into the different versions of Icelander, stay tuned. Hopefully we can help you out. So I do want to start down memory lane to this sweet deck here. This was from last year, like September of 2022. This is an OTK Icelander. Obviously, hypothermia and amulet of ice no longer legal, but this deck basically worked around getting multiple frost hexes, right? And then we were going to try to get some giant ice eternal, rip their hand with insidious chill amulet of ice, maybe come in with a freezing point, which deals 5 plus the number of frozen things or frostbites, and try to basically kill your opponent in 1 turn. Now, this wasn't like Kano levels of damage for me, but I could pretty commonly push like 18 to 24 damage with it, which was usually enough to put someone down. Now, the meta's changed a lot since then. You have to remember that the meta back then was this slower, stodgier version. Multiple people were playing for pitch stacks, and honestly, that's kind of the flesh and blood that I really enjoyed, and some of the flesh and blood that I really missed today. Those kind of longer games. I really enjoy pitch stacking. I think it's an important skill. I like memorizing my opponent's pitch stack as well, as asinine as that sounds. But anyway, this is the old OTK list. If you ever hear anyone reference it, this is where it came from. One of the reasons I think it's important is Sigil of Permafrost showed up in the Calling Winners Icelander deck. They literally said they didn't have another card to put there, so they put it in Sigil. But Sigil's an interesting one. You could fuse it on your opponent's turn to trigger Insidious Chill, get him to discard a card, and the next time you deal arcane damage, you create that many Frostbites. So you'd usually do this, fuse it, send a big spell with the Stormstriders, create a bunch of Frostbites, and that's kind of the core of the OTK. But let's get to more modern times, and I think there's really 2 variations here. We have the Boomer, or the Arcane version, which is really a good meta call. This is what Rhea has piloted to great success in the recent Battle Hardens. And it's basically a predominantly arcane damage build. There are a few physical attacks, ranging onslaught and Findles. My understanding is they're predominantly for popping, and occasionally we're going to send them as well. So why is this a great meta call? Well, the meta in general with Oldhim rotating out has just gotten leaner. And by leaner, I mean their curves are more aggressive, and it's gotten faster. Also with the Bullseye Bracers being banned for Ranger, they're running lower AB, right? Redline Dromai is extremely red heavy. So even though they can have a million Ashwings out there, they don't often have the pitch to do it. Even when they're doing Furnace tricks as a wizard, we just have to kind of time our places to jump accurately there. So I think it's a really good meta call. So what are some of the cons about this list, the Boomer list in particular? Well, it could be hurt by people adapting for it or people preparing for it. I think this version of Icelander, and Kano for that matter, preys on the meta not expecting wizards. It's why I was playing Kano for the RTN season and played it with okay success. But if people start preparing for it, if people start bringing more Arcane Barrier, if people start readjusting their curves, if people start bringing, like Lexi bringing Trench is something I don't want to see at all if I'm playing this kind of list. I really think that could hurt this list in the long run. So I really enjoy playing this list. This is more enjoyable to me than the Bulllander deck. I've been kind of quote-unquote bullish on it in the past. Sadly, I don't think it's the best version, or I didn't think it was the best version in the past. It might be the best version now. It really just depends on what kind of meta you think you can catch people in, right? Bravo being more and more popular, if Bravo is presenting AB3 and 40 blues, makes me less excited to play this kind of list. But again, the evasiveness or arcane damage really can't be understated. This deck presents less damage. This deck presents less than half the amount of damage that my Leviathan deck does. But again, it's arcane damage, and you have to factor in Waning Moon. Waning Moon is so much damage. People always sleep on it. It's 2 damage on your turn, 3 damage on your opponent's turn. Waning Moon is just an amazing card to kind of put back in there. Some of the different cards that you'll see in this deck versus the Bulllander deck, you'll see Red Hail. which again sets you up to pitch a blue, play out Red Hail for 4. Since it's your turn, Waning Moon's coming in for 2 more, so that's 6 arcane damage off 2 cards. Again, pretty evasive. We have a full suite of Ice Veins, which I run in Bulllander, but a lot of people don't. That on-hit discard is just one of the, I know it's not on-hit, take damage discard is one of the most powerful effects we have out there. We also read Red Winter's Bite, right? Just literally trading us a card. We play this, we say, hey, you're going to get a card out of it. And then we can pitch a blue after this to Cornet Peak to pull 2 cards out of their hand, which is pretty nasty. We have Icebind and Encase here as anti-ranger tech and other things. It does 3 damage to any target, which is important for the Dromai matchup. If Icebind or Fuse, you can freeze a card in their arsenal until the start of your next turn. So if you freeze it, right, theoretically you can clog Lexi up so they can't attack you. This is one of the reasons I really don't want to see Trench, right? We have a couple different things, Cold Snap and Icebind, that can freeze things in arsenal. Encase, 3 damage, and it freezes that hero and all equipment they control. This turns off Flamescale Furnace, Snapdragons, right? All sorts of different things there. So Encase, just really good as well. Also shuts off Lexi's hero ability. Right, we've done a whole episode on Blizzard, why Blizzard's amazing. We've done a whole episode on Warmonger's Diplomacy, why that's amazing. Scour is an interesting meta call. We can kind of blow up Rune Chance in order to try to stop rune gating. Or if we're really worried about Prism, which is not a good matchup at all, we can bring Scour in for that as well. So again, cool deck. Those are kind of the variations you don't expect. Those few cards there are the things you don't expect to see in the Bulllander deck. And this is a pretty common Bulllander deck. This is basically what Michael Hamilton kind of pioneered and piloted to fame, and I guess to a lesser degree fortune. It basically involves making these above rate attacks, right? Where 2 cards, 7 damage, plus gaining a life. So that's really 2 cards for 8. Wounded Bull, 2 cards for 8 damage, assuming we're staying underneath them, right? E-Strike is great. It's just a great hand-fixing card. Don't be afraid to send it for go again. If we have another blue, we can then pitch to the Cornet Peak. Presenting 5 damage and making them discard or pay 1 is really powerful. You can always send it for 7. You can also send it for draw a card if you only have a 2-card hand in your turn and you want to get something to Arsenal, right? There's only a few cards in this deck we don't want Arsenal. The big one's Heart of Findle, and then depending on the time and the matchup, it might be Frost Hex or Insidious Chill. So don't be afraid to send E-Strike for draw a card. Cornet Peak in the Boomer version and this version is an incredibly powerful card. And most of the time when I see new Icelanders struggling, it's because they're not Cornet Peaking enough. An offensive card, you normally want to rate at about 3.5 to 4 points of value per card, right? We talked about Findle's Fighting Spirit giving us 8 value with 2 cards, right? So 4 value per card. Wounded Bull, talk about 8 value and 2 cards, right? So 4 value per card. E-Strike gives us 7 value and 2 cards, right? So 3.5 damage per card. So by pitching a blue and taking a card from them, we're trading our blue for 3.5 to 4 points of damage. Our blues on average only block for 3 to 2 points of damage. So we're trading pretty favorably that way. So don't be afraid to 2-block, play out your Arcane spell, Cornet Peak, move back to Arsenal. So again, Cornet Peak more often than you probably think you should. I think it's kind of like one of the levels of unlocking Icelander. This deck, again, presents less damage than Leviathan, but more than the Arcane version, obviously. We're up to 9 poppers with the Findles, the Wounded Bulls, and the Command and Conquers. Command and Conquers are brought in for Lexi. We kind of talk about this in my sideboard guide here. Encase are phenomenal. I really would like some Ice Binds. I just haven't found space for them. Scar for Scar, leveraging that, again, 4 points of value in a card, leveraging our lower starting life. One of the really fun things about Icelander is staying under your opponent's life to turn these things on, like Heart of Findle and Scar for Scar, as you kind of go through the game. Warmonger's Diplomacy, I'm still waffling on, but really powerful into certain matchups, so still deserves a spot. And I've kind of talked about everything else. So this is the Bulllander version. It's less dependent on the arcane damage. It still normally uses this big arcane finish. Basically, it's just a tempo deck that tries to keep life parity. And then we're going to sneak ahead because on your turn, we're going to Storm Striders and kill you. So those are the 2 lists right now that I think are prominent Icelanders list. We have the traditional Bulllander from Michael Hamilton. We kind of have this arcane build that Rhea piloted to great success recently. And, you know, we saw a long time ago, I can't remember who was playing it a long time ago, but a couple different people ran this into Nats. So which one excites you more? Personally, I think if you're a wizard, you should be slinging spells. So I love playing this arcane version. Again, my biggest concerns with this arcane version are Bravo coming back into the meta, Lexi tweaking their deck, sideboard, and equipment to be more prepared for it, and the same thing with other decks as well. I just think that this is a little bit more consistent, but I'm not going to lie, the allure of just sending 12 every turn with Levi is very appealing. So hopefully this helped. If you're trying to if you're on the fence a little bit about what Icelander to play, hopefully it helped give you a little bit of information. If you're playing against Icelander and you want to have a few more ideas on what they're doing so you can make better sideboarding decisions. So until next time, everyone, cheers and happy gaming.